Here with me now is Jonathan Brearley, who's the Chief Executive of Ofgem.
Good
morning to you. So tell us what the news price cap is and what it means for families' bills this winter.
Right. Well, the news price cap for an average household, so this is one with average use, is around £1,923 from October. Now, that is a drop of around £150 a year compared to the energy that we pay now. So that is good news for customers. That is a drop. But equally, of course, those prices are still much higher than they were in 2021 before the gas crisis, and I know many families will still be struggling to pay their bills. So it's a step in the right direction, but clearly a long way to go.
Well, yes, and one of the reasons they'll be struggling as well is that the government subsidies have gone. They were worth around £66 a month for families.
Yes.
And the Resolution Foundation is saying that that and the increase in standing charges as well means that a huge number of people, over 7 million households, face higher bills. Is that acceptable?
Well, look, I talk to customers up and down the country about their energy bills, and I know that many people will still struggle this winter. So, for example, I was in Birmingham this week, I've been up to Manchester, and of course people are going to struggle to pay their bills at this price. What we need to do with Ofgem, the government and the industry is work together now to focus on those vulnerable customers to make sure they get the support they need. For the average household, though, they are better off this year than last year. So things are changing, the market is stabilising, but there's more for all of us to do.
What do you think that help should look like?
Well, I think, for example, we're telling the companies they need to make sure that if someone's struggling to pay their bill, first of all, they need to identify that early and get in touch with the customer when they're beginning to struggle so you can still fix the problem. Secondly, they should be working with that household, so looking at their finances and identifying how much they can afford to pay towards their bills and pay off any arrears that are there. And thirdly, they need access to independent advice as a family, because sadly this year it's not just about energy bills, it's about our mortgages, it's about our rent and it's about our food. So families are facing huge pressures this winter and all of us need to work together to make sure we deal with it.
Should the government reintroduce those subsidies and help families directly?
Well, look, as a regulator, it's not my job to comment on government policy.
But would that be helpful?
Well, of course it would be helpful, but what I don't have to do, which they have to do, is think about the fiscal position, think about the tax position and all the other trade-offs they've got to make. What I would say, though, is we need to be clear that although this is better, families are absolutely going to struggle with their energy bills this winter, and all of us need to work together to support that.
Isn't the energy price cap designed to protect vulnerable families from rising energy bills? Is it fit for purpose?
Well, look, the price cap has served us really well. It's saved up to £100 a year before the crisis, and it's certainly stabilised things as prices were changing dramatically in the market. But we've said now is the time to look at pricing regulation as a whole. The market is so different today compared to what it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the gas price was flat. No one ever really talked about it, I'm sure, on this show or elsewhere. But right now, even though prices are coming down, that market is really volatile in Australia. Prices jumped in the wholesale market, where those companies buy their energy, by 30%. We now hear it's off. They've gone down by almost the same amount. So we're in a very volatile market. So I think it is right that we look at pricing regulation and not say that the price cap doesn't work, but compare it to the alternatives.
But you want the price cap to be reformed in an ideal world?
Well, we want the government to look at that, to examine the alternatives and then to make a decision. We're not saying it doesn't work. We're saying the world's changed. Let's have another look.
What does a reformed price cap look like?
Well, there are all sorts of options you might have around that. You might say, let's make it more flexible so it adapts to the market. Let's put people, instead of having this variable price cap, on regulated fixed price contracts. Or indeed, let's consider a social tariff where those worst off perhaps pay a bit less. We'd like to see all of that in the mix. We don't have an answer to this question, but we would like the government to look at it.
And before you get those answers, let's look at what we know now.
Sure.
You also set the maximum standing charge amount. That's the amount that you pay to have your home connected to the grid. Those charges have risen. They were just under £250 a year in October 2020. They're now almost £300 a year. Are you moving to bring those charges down? Well,
we are examining the standing charge and we are looking at taking some of those costs potentially off of that fixed rate. But what I need to emphasise is this is really complex. So if you have a poor family that have high energy needs, for example, elderly households that need to heat their homes 24 hours a day, or indeed families with disabled children, then they will be made worse off if we take that from that fixed charge and put it onto the price per unit. So this isn't simple. We'll work through it, but we want to make sure that we're not leaving customers in a much worse position.
What's your message to people worried about their bills this winter?
Well, I appreciate, and I talk to many people that are worried about their bills this winter. What I'd say to them is if you are struggling, please do get in touch with your supplier. Please do make sure you get access to the 3 things they have to do for you. First of all, they should be examining your finances and making sure you can pay what you can afford. Secondly, they should be giving you access to the government schemes that already exist. There's a warm home discount that gives you £150 off your bill if you qualify. And equally, they should be putting you in touch with independent advice that helps you look at your finances as a whole. As I say, and this is not a good thing to say, but families aren't just struggling with their energy bills now. It's mortgages, it's rents, it's the cost of food and all the other pressures on families. And all of us need to work together to make sure they're protected as much as we can.
OK, well, Jonathan Brearley, Chief Executive of Ofgem, we really appreciate you coming in. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.